All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Little. I'm the mayor for the District of North Vancouver, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all here to our public meeting for October 12th at 7 o'clock. Just a few housekeeping things I wanted to address at the beginning of the meeting. First, I want to express my apologies. We're starting just a little bit late, and the reason for that is we're in this little bit of a strange legislated limbo. MH 192, which was the medical health order that the provincial government gave to municipalities in order to be able to participate in virtual meetings, it actually ran out on September 30th, and we weren't allowed to replace it with new procedural bylaws until after that point. And so we've already introduced them at first and second reading and third reading at a council meeting on October 4th. And we're waiting for them to come back for adoption on October 18th, I believe. And so from that point on, after October 18th, then the council will be able to establish a quorum, including both in-person and virtual participants. But until that time, for the October 4th, October 12th, and October 18th meeting, we actually have to be in person in order to be able to establish a quorum. And so we do actually have all members of council participating in the meeting tonight. 4 people are participating here in the council chamber and 3 are participating remotely. Likewise, it's a hybrid meeting for members of the public. Some are participating in the room, some are participating virtually, and staff as well. We hope that this will be a technology we'll be able to use going forward to make sure that people can participate, whether they're here or not. But we just have a little bit of juggling to get through in order to get our procedures updated to the new regulations. One other thing I was just going to mention is that it's quite chilly here in the council chambers. It's only about 17 degrees. Our boiler is not functioning in District Hall, and so it is quite cool. So we may be a little jealous. I saw somebody was showing off their turkey dinner earlier tonight and sitting at their nice warm home. We really appreciate that email. Thank you, Peter. But we're going to have to slog through in a nice chilly council chamber tonight. But just to start the meeting off properly, I do have a formal script that I'm going to read. We read this for public hearings and public information meetings, just to sort of give you the rules of the evening. So tonight we're going to be considering proposed amendments to the fireworks regulation bylaw. This public meeting is being held to provide District Council with the opportunity to hear the community's views on proposed amendments to the fireworks regulation bylaw. This meeting will be held in a hybrid format with a combination of in-person and electronic participation by some members of council, staff, and the public. Public participation in this meeting is being accommodated by speakers having signed up in advance, as stated in the notice of meeting, as well as observers being provided in Zoom meeting information on the DNV website and in the notice of motion. Those observing the meeting via Zoom who did not sign up in advance to speak but decided to once the meeting was underway may either use the raise hand function if participating using a computer, or press *9 on your telephone keypad if participating by phone. The electronic means being employed for this meeting allow for effective two-way audio and video communications via the Zoom software. As always, written submissions will be received by the municipal clerk on behalf of and shared with council at any time up to the time the meeting is closed. These may be submitted to input@dnv.org. Therefore, in this manner, all persons will be afforded a reasonable opportunity to be heard and to present written submissions. The chair has established the following rules of order for this meeting. We will go through the established speakers list. At the end of the speakers list, the chair may call for any other speakers not on the speakers list. Speakers in the council chamber will raise hands. Those participating through Zoom will use the raise hand function, or participating by telephone by pressing *9 to raise hand. And you'll hear me check in from time to time as we exhaust the speakers list to make sure that we've identified everybody who wants to speak and given them an opportunity. You will have 5 minutes to address council for a first time. Begin your remarks to council by stating your name and approximate street address. After everyone who wishes to speak has spoken once, speakers will then be allowed one additional 5-minute opportunity. Any additional presentations will only be allowed at the discretion of the chair. Please do not repeat information from your previous presentations, and ensure your comments remain focused on the bylaw under consideration this evening. If you have provided a written submission, there's no need to read it, as it will have already been seen by council. You may summarize or briefly reiterate the highlights of your submission, but ensure your comments pertain to the bylaw under consideration at this meeting. Some important notes about public meetings. Council is here to listen to the public, not to debate the merits of the bylaw. Council may ask clarifying questions. The clerk has a binder containing documents and submissions related to the bylaw, which Council has received and which you are welcome to review. This is available online at dnv.org/agenda. Everyone at the meeting will be provided an opportunity to speak. Finally, please note that this meeting is being streamed live over the internet and recorded in accordance with the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And one last comment I will make is that we are still observing COVID regulations here in the hall. If you are not speaking at the time, our expectation is that you will have your mask on. But when you do come up to speak, or if members of council are speaking, they are welcome to. It is their option to remove their masks while they are speaking, which is why we have the plastic barriers and people still spaced out. So at this time, I'm going to refer the meeting over to the clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Introduction of the bylaw, Fireworks Regulation Bylaw 7456, 2004, Amendment Bylaw 8516, 2021, Amendment 4. Bylaw 8516 proposes to amend the Fireworks Regulation Bylaw 7456, 2004 to prohibit the sale, possession, and use of consumer fireworks in the District of North Vancouver, regulate the sale of fireworks for public display requiring a valid District of North Vancouver business license and specifying conditions for sale, and regulate the discharge of fireworks for public display requiring a valid display event permit issued by the fire chief and professional certification.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, I'm going to welcome our fire chief, Brian Hutchinson, to the meeting, and he is going to provide the staff presentation tonight.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you can give me just a second here as I work through the technology piece and share my screen.
Yes, we can see that, Chief.
Okay, there we go. Your Worship, Mayor Little, members of council and members of the public, prior to getting into this short presentation, I wanted to acknowledge that we have some additional district staff on the call this evening that contributed to some of the background work on this. Our Chief Bylaw Officer, Carol Walker, is with us. Assistant Chief Monty Armstrong, Public Safety, is with us, and Captain Nathan Walker, Public Safety, are with us as well, in the event that council has any follow-up or any questions for us. So this evening's Fireworks Regulation Bylaw, the public meeting, our presentation is very brief, but we wanted to just go over some of the steps that got us here today. We're going to cover a little bit of the background, look briefly at our current framework for sales and the discharge of fireworks, speak briefly about some of the community concerns, and then wrap it up with a review of the proposed bylaw 8516. In November of 2020, based on direction that and information that Councillor Curran brought to council, staff were directed to undertake a review of our municipal regulations and to consult with our neighboring communities around the consumer sale and use of fireworks. In July of this year, we came back to council with a council report around amended bylaw 8516 for council's consideration that would then prohibit the consumer use and sale of fireworks, which brings us to where we are this evening. As per our community charter, anytime we're going to propose changes to a business regulation, we need to ensure that the public has been provided an opportunity to be heard. So our current state around the sales of consumer fireworks, when we look at the vendors, they are all required to have a business license for each of their locations. They have to have a permit to sell fireworks, which is issued by the fire department. They carry a $1,500 bond. They have to have valid insurance, and they have to provide us a copy of their inventory. We then conduct fire safety inspections and we review their inventory. We restrict their sales and display to the period between October 25th to October 31st. And all their sales need to be limited to customers that have a valid District of North Vancouver fireworks permit. With that said, over the past years, we have seen a decrease in the number of licenses that have been requested. When it comes to the actual discharge of consumer fireworks, the individuals have to have a district permit to either purchase and or discharge those fireworks, must be 19 years of age or older. The fireworks are meant to be discharged on private property with parameters around how close to structures and how close to the wildland interface. And they're only supposed to be discharged on October 31st between the period of 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. So over the past few years, council and staff have heard from residents both positively and negatively in regards to fireworks. From those individuals who feel negatively impacted by fireworks, we've heard about safety concerns in the community, the handling, the care, and the discharge of fireworks, the noise disturbances, impact on pets and other residents. We have also heard from residents who actually still enjoy the personal use of fireworks and desire to see it continue. And there's a wide variety of reasons for that as well. We also hear from a segment of the community that brings forward the environmental impacts of fireworks, the scattered debris that is often left in our communities, most likely and most often due to the fact that the fireworks are being discharged on property that is not private property, the air pollution, and the impact on wildlife. Which brings us to this point, the proposed bylaw amendment 8516 that came out of the report that came to council in July that would prohibit the sales and use of consumer grade fireworks, and that's a classification known as F1. This would also harmonize our regulations with the City of North Vancouver and as we've noted, align with similar actions across Metro Vancouver and throughout most of British Columbia. It would, however, allow fireworks to continue in a more structured format at specifically authorized events where technicians trained and certified under the Explosives Act would be permitted to utilize fireworks. So it would be much more regulated, and that permit would be administered through the Fire and Rescue Services bylaw. So, and then we provided a brief list of what the classifications of fireworks really would be. And this is really impacting mostly F1, which is the consumer grade fireworks. And your worship, members of council, that pretty much wraps up the presentation portion of this meeting from our side.
Thank you, Chief Hutchinson. And so again, the purpose of the meeting is to hear residents' concerns. A decision will not be made on the material of the matter tonight. The information will be referred to a future meeting of council, and the decision by the council will be made at that time. So at this point, I'm going to start the public input portion of the meeting. And the first speaker that I have signed up to speak is Dan Curry. Dan Curry, if you could come up to the table in the middle here, and Dan is participating in person. And again, a reminder, you have 5 minutes to address the council, and if you could start with your name and your approximate address for the record, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Dan Curry. I live in the Deep Cove area of the District of North Vancouver. So good evening, Mayor and council members. I am speaking today as a lifelong resident of North Vancouver who has fond memories of attending neighborhood fireworks displays every Halloween. As an adult, I would like to carry on this tradition with a short, controlled fireworks display on private property once per year. Bylaw 7456, in effect since 2004 and amended several times since then, is extremely thorough and even covers sparklers. It stipulates that fireworks be allowed to be sold from October 25th to October 31st. Fireworks can only be sold and possessed by those over 19 years of age and in possession of a valid permit issued by the fire chief. Fireworks can only legally be used on private property from 6 to 10 p.m. on October 31st. The bylaw even dictates that records be kept of all sales and each type and quantity sold. It outlines the types of fireworks allowed to be sold, stipulating that firecrackers are illegal and not to be possessed or used in any way. The penalties are severe, with a max penalty of 6 months in jail and a $10,000 fine. In short, it is a comprehensive and well thought out bylaw regulating the sale, possession, and use of fireworks in the DNB. In 2019, 366 permits were issued. In 2020, 488 permits were issued, an almost 30% increase. Clearly, demand for fireworks has been increasing and will conceivably continue to increase as our population grows. To dissolve or greatly amend the bylaw now and cancel the permitting system would be to give up the only existing regulation of the sale, possession, and use of fireworks in the DNB. The dissolution of regulation for a product that is increasingly popular seems at odds with logic and common sense. We have all seen the effect of outright bans rather than government control and regulation over items that people want. This is even more nonsensical when you consider that even if the ban is put in place, residents of the DNB will still be able to purchase fireworks online in neighboring municipalities or on First Nations lands at annual stalls set up to sell fireworks. Speaking with a representative of the Squamish First Nation today, it was confirmed that there are no plans to cancel the permit allowing the sale of fireworks on Squamish Nation land. It was explained that First Nations benefit from this business activity in the form of gross profit sharing that then goes into community programs. In my view, until a federal ban is enacted, a municipal ban will simply be ineffective. Banning the legal sales and use of fireworks will end long-standing traditions that contribute to community cohesion at a time when people are feeling more and more disconnected. It will punish those that have taken the time to obtain permits and follow all the rules, all to put on a small neighborhood display each year, while leaving those that are responsible for the majority of the complaints to continue to do what they've always done. The reality is that this ban will not stop pets from getting spooked or lead to quiet October 31st evenings. As they have for decades, fireworks will continue to be obtained and used on Halloween night. The difference will be that those that have used fireworks responsibly and safely in the past will no longer have a legal way of doing so. Make no mistake, that is who this ban will affect. Those that have obtained and used fireworks illegally, causing noise pollution and other issues, will still be able to obtain and use fireworks as they always have. I strongly encourage the Mayor and Council to carefully consider the issue through a fact-based, common sense approach. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So there's no questions directly back to the speakers, but thank you very much for your presentation, and moving on to the next speaker.
Thank you.
The next speaker that I have is Perry Logan, who's joining us virtually. Perry Logan, can you hear me? You're coming up as muted on my screen.
Is that better?
That's better. Welcome.
Perfect. Thank you.
You have 5 minutes to address the council.
All right, my name is Perry Logan, and I'm the Executive Director of the Canadian National Fireworks Association, better known as the CNFA, and I live at 13 Tanner Close in Airdrie, Alberta. So I'd like to start by thanking Mayor and Council for allowing me to speak on behalf of the fireworks industry tonight. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about this important topic and learn some of what the fireworks industry is all about from our perspective. As the leading national voice in the fireworks industry, the CNFA advocates for our members and our mission to promote fair access and safety in the sale and use of fireworks. We achieve this through education, working with regulators, as well as strong and engaged member compliance. I'm reaching out tonight to offer the CNFA's experience to help the District of North Vancouver understand our industry a little better and address the concerns brought forward by Councillor Kerr. What we are talking about tonight, as a fire chief reference, is consumer or F1 fireworks designed for recreational use. They're the fireworks that families buy. Councillor Kern stated the concerns about animal safety, and so we have the same concerns. We've had discussions with the BC Humane Society in the past and other organizations since then to discuss solutions to make animals safer and to be less reactive to the explosions of fireworks. We understand that. What we've also learned from these meetings is when we pass this messaging on to our members, and our goal is to have further conversations to make this even a bigger priority within our industry. The CNFA last month met with the Toronto Environmental Society to discuss how we can work together to raise awareness about watersheds and other effects that fireworks possibly have on the environment. What your committee must understand is a ban on consumer fireworks will not resolve the problems brought forward by the councillor. I can say that because over the past 2 years, I've worked with 60 municipalities across Canada that are searching for solutions as well. A survey conducted by the City of Toronto this past spring revealed that almost 70% of the people using fireworks were not aware of the bylaw or had limited knowledge of its content. These results are consistent in other cities as well. Another reality that communities must face is accessibility of firework products in nearby communities, as just mentioned, or the availability online. It's probably 25% of our industry sales these days. The CNFA's counter to all of these issues is more education, is a better make more education a requirement and less enforcement. The CNFA has created an online education program that we recommend that every municipality work with. We created our vendor certification employee training program to educate staff and management on the requirements under the federal government's Explosives Act 2013. It also addresses content and local bylaws. We recommend that our online course becomes a condition for anyone applying for a permit to sell in the District of North Vancouver. Over the past year, our course has become a requirement in 3 Alberta communities and is before committee in both Toronto and Edmonton. Brampton, Ontario, just this week made education a requirement to sell. Our second initiative is our Be a Good Neighbor program. It's a pamphlet that we have retailers hand out with each purchase and is aimed at providing safety and legal requirements to consumers. Our Be a Good Neighbor program teaches users to inform and respect their neighbor, prepare properly, be safe, celebrate, and then clean up. It also highlights local concerns. In Toronto, we emphasize the illegal discharge in city parks over Canada Day. All of these programs working with municipalities are provided at no charge. In closing, the CNFA understands what Councillor Curring is trying to accomplish. We want to offer our help. The use of consumer fireworks has skyrocketed during COVID, and we believe that it is a major contributor for more use. To use the numbers calculated over COVID would be a quick step to judgment. The numbers have increased almost 300% in the last 12 months. The problem we're talking about here is not really fireworks, but it's about the delinquent use by the 0.01% of the population that doesn't really care about the rest of us. They are the reason we're here tonight. This was a problem in Alberta a few years ago, but through education and industry support, together we've minimized the number of calls for delinquent use over the two previous years. I'm asking the District of North Vancouver City Council to direct staff to work with the CNFA to create a report to bring back to council with attainable solutions. Let us help you govern our industry without punishing the thousands in the community who enjoy fireworks safely. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your presentation, Perry Logan. The next speaker I have is Cindy Gerlach here in person. Welcome, Cindy Gerlach. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, and thanks for having me tonight. I'm going to take a slightly different tack on this, and I appreciate the comments that were made by Dan and Perry. I'm a parent. I have 3 adult children that we have raised in the District of North Vancouver. 2 of those children are autistic. We don't get to participate in many of the activities in our community because of their disability. Halloween has always been a very difficult time for my family because trick-or-treating, while every other child generally gets to enjoy this, my children haven't. Many years ago, we took on the task of having fireworks instead of having Halloween celebrations. It is the one event that my youngest son looks forward to every single year. We have followed all the rules, we have done the training, we have provided him safety tips, etc. To take this away from us is actually going to be more detrimental to my children than you can imagine. I'm asking you, and the reason I'm telling you my story is because there are many families like mine who do not get to participate in their community. And this is one of the areas that they can participate in, where the neighbors come out and they watch us and they participate with us. Last year, there is a family down at the end of my street who also has 2 children with autism, and for the first time they came out to watch the fireworks. There are 5 individuals that live with autism on our street, and that is something that they enjoy. I bring my story forward because I want you to consider the impact of families like mine when you say that we can't do something that we enjoy. And there is very little we can do. I can't take my kids to a community event to watch fireworks. It's just not possible. When you have more than one child with a disability, we are, by nature of what we have to deal with, in a box. And so I'm asking you, whether we follow or we look at what Mr. Logan has suggested in doing better, I'm just asking you to please consider, council and mayor, our family and the families like mine who cannot participate in activities. And this small half an hour or an hour event once a year is huge. So thank you very much for your time. And I really do hope you do take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gerlach. Next speaker I have is Emily Pickett. Emily Pickett will be joining us virtually. Do we have Emily Pickett on the call?
Yes, hello.
Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Emily Pickett, and this evening I'm speaking on behalf of the Vancouver Humane Society. As an organization dedicated to the protection of animals throughout the Lower Mainland and across BC, the Vancouver Humane Society is concerned about the negative impacts that fireworks can have on animals, both wild and domestic, as well as the environment. We wrote to City Council about this last year, so I wanted to attend this evening to reiterate our concerns regarding fireworks, and I'll briefly touch on a few key points. Research shows that fireworks are associated with anxiety, disorientation, stress, and fear in wild animals. For example, they can be fatal for wild birds who become startled and fly away in panic, often resulting in high numbers of bird deaths as they inadvertently fly into objects. Animals may also abandon their nests and their dens, leaving behind their young who are unfortunately unable to fend for themselves. And this is an important consideration, I think, given the district's proximity to a lot of wildlife habitat, places such as Maplewood Flats, which is a conservation area, and a bird sanctuary where more than 250 species of birds have been observed. Fireworks are also very stressful for domesticated animals and pets. In fact, research shows that at least 40% of dogs experience noise phobias. And pets have been known to become lost, break leashes, escape fenced yards, and even their homes in a panicked response to fireworks. Many pet owners know this firsthand. They know firsthand how stressful and traumatizing fireworks can be for their pets. And in fact, it was just a few years ago that an incredibly tragic story of a dog named Maggie, who was fatally hit by the SkyTrain in Vancouver after fleeing when someone unexpectedly set off fireworks during the day nearby. And the use of fireworks also contributes to environmental contamination. The release of chemicals into the air, which then go on to contaminate the soil and water, is an example. And it's not uncommon to find garbage from discharged fireworks left behind on streets and in parks throughout the district. I've seen it myself. And this again poses a threat to animals and the environment. So a ban on the consumer sale and use of fireworks would follow the lead of many other Lower Mainland municipalities that have taken similar action, including Vancouver and the City of North Vancouver, as has been noted. So in conclusion, the Vancouver Humane Society encourages City Council to take concrete steps that will help protect wildlife, pets, and the environment, and the larger community by prohibiting consumer fireworks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your presentation, Emily Pickett. The next speaker I have is Yingyan Zhu, participating virtually. Yingyan Zhu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry, I tried to get my camera on, but seems not working. So my apologies to everyone. I just don't want to want you to think that I try to avoid meeting you all.
That's quite all right. We can hear you clearly. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Thank you very much. I'm a resident in Lynn Valley. I have lived in North Vancouver for almost 10 years. And today I would like to speak in support of the ban. And just simple examples that my dog, every time there's fireworks gone, my dog hide under the bed and won't come out. And during in our Facebook group, a dog Facebook group, every time there's fireworks event on, there's at least 5 to 6 dogs that are missing, running away, and get people so stressed. And so fireworks, let alone, it has a negative impact on birds and wildlife, which we are so lucky to share the same space in North Vancouver. So if you look at my surname, you will see that I'm coming from China. So if the rumor is right, we Chinese actually invented fireworks in the belief that loud voice and the flash of light will dispel evil spirit. So if it's a tradition, it's a tradition actually of fear and ignorance. And in modern society, we should have coming up other ways to celebrate instead of this very outdated way, let alone it add pollution and stress to other people. And even in China, fireworks are banned in many cities. So nowadays it's very fashionable to blame bad things on China. So why don't you join this bad tradition, bad activity? Can we have something better? And with the fossil pollution, we come up with so many innovative ways like EV, active transportation. Can we have something better that people can enjoy at the same time, don't have this kind of negative impact? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ying and Zhu. The next speaker I have is Peter Thievin, also participating virtually. Peter Thievin, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Your Worship. Peter Thievin, 1900 Block Indian River Crescent. I'd like to start tonight, Council, by telling you a little bit of my own situation, because I certainly see both sides to this debate. On the one hand, our former beloved pet dog was very, very afraid of fireworks. So I certainly have lived through the trauma that some pets experience, some animals experience, but I can tell you that she did not die from that. On the other hand, so I certainly empathize with that, but on the other hand, I can tell you this, I've lived at this address for 33 years. And for 33 straight years, after the generally acknowledged hours of trick-or-treating, usually about 7:30 or 8 o'clock, there's 2 cul-de-sacs just opposite where I live. And the entire community of cul-de-sacs has come together every Halloween about 7:30 or 8, rain or shine. And within the confines of the bylaw, they have a fireworks display for about 20 to 30 minutes once per year, where the whole community, everybody comes out of their house together. And, you know, if there wasn't such a thing, I don't think that people would come out of their houses all at the same time and gather. But I really want to focus, and I would appreciate if council members could follow up and ask this question so that the answers to these questions could be read into the public record for this meeting. Because I looked at the materials and I recall the previous meetings you had on this. I took a look at the permits, or sorry, the complaints. And I noted that there were a total of 25 complaints over the last 4 years. 25 in 4 years, that's less than, or sorry, last 7 years. So that's less than 4 complaints per year. But I've listened to the previous input at council meetings. I've certainly paid attention to people commenting online. And I can tell you it's my perception, and I would love if council would verify this with staff, both from the fire department, bylaws, and the RCMP, do those complaints, the ones that have come in, are they attributable to the 4 hours that are permitted? Are they attributable to fireworks on private property as is currently permitted? Are they attributable to people without permits? Because the bulk of the complaints that I see are talking about it going on at any time. And, you know, they're talking about fireworks going off at 1 a.m. and fireworks going off 3 days before and 10 days after Halloween, all currently illegal activities. And I agree with the comment made earlier that what you're doing is you're punishing the law abiders because you're either unwilling or you are not capable of enforcing the bylaws that we have. Where have we heard this song before, Council? That we move to ban things because we can't enforce the bylaws that we have. And currently, there are the bulk of it. My perception is the bulk of the complaints are going on outside the bylaw. And therefore, given that the First Nations will still be selling fireworks, given that you can still buy them in other municipalities, given you can still buy them online, they're still going to be going on illegally. So all I would say is enforce your bylaw. Enforce the bylaw and then tell us how many complaints that there are. Because a 4-hour window once per year where a community to come together, I don't think is too much to ask. The thing that concerns me when I look at the map of other municipalities who are banning this current activity, I think you can pretty much, when I look at that map, what I see is a map of local governments who are quite willing to basically further ingress into people's lives and dictate to them how they're going to live. Now, I have a lot of compassion for the pets, let me tell you. But I can plan as a pet owner, I can plan for a 4-hour window once a year. I can make sure, we used to do this with our dog, make sure that she's downstairs, make sure that, you know, she's not outside. We certainly don't go and walk our dog in that 4 hours. And this is an event that can be planned for. And I think that, really what we need to do is enforce our bylaw. Now, I do have a couple of things to point out. I'm not sure how much time I have left. Maybe I need to come back later.
So once we go through questions from council and exhaust the list a first time, there will be an opportunity for additional speakers.
Okay, have I exhausted my 5 minutes as it is now?
It just beeped just before you wrapped up there. So
thank you.
Well,
I'll come back with your permission. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Peter Thievin. The next speaker I have is Alison Wood. I believe Alison Wood is joining us virtually.
Hi there.
Alison Wood, can you hear me?
I can, thank you. So I'm Alison Wood and I live in Kate's Landing in North Vancouver. And thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to speak in support of the ban of commercial fireworks. I come as a person who has enjoyed years and years of having neighborhood fireworks. But now I'm realizing that I believe that time is really up for us as humans to be having fireworks. So I think that the effect on our environment, so the air pollution and the plastic pollution, the basically exploding plastics and cardboards and chemicals into the air, as much as I'd love to see them over the years, I just think that time is up for them, along with the fact that the negative effects on animals, both domestic and wild animals. And I think that for me, the crux of this issue is the idea of community, and building communities and our neighborhood communities are really, really important to me. And I think that there's some conflation between community events and fireworks. And I think it's really important that we now realize that there are lots of ways to bring communities together on Halloween night. So whether that be having a party in somebody's yard, which we've done with hot chocolate and treats for the kids and wine for the adults in somebody's backyard or in their house. That building community with a little bit of creativity doesn't need to be around polluting our environment and negatively affecting wildlife as well as domestic animals. So I think that I'm going to keep it really short, but that's my feeling is that we really need to now look at that was great, and we now know that it really does negatively affect the environment, and we need to find other ways of bringing our communities together in positive ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison Wood. The next speaker I have, I believe Juan Palacio, you indicated an interest to speak. So Juan is here in the council chambers. I will again remind people, so we've been flashing up on the screen as we go along, the phone number you can call in, but also other ways that you can connect. I believe if you're connected through the Zoom function with a phone, you can do *9 to raise your hand, or use the raise hand function within the program, and we will add you to the list. And so at this point, I do see a couple of hands that have popped up on the attendees side. So after Juan Palacio, I'm going to go to Carrie Eilers and Hazen, assuming it's Hazen Colbert. And so Juan Palacio, welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of the council. So many topics that I was going to speak about have already been covered. Basically, how there's already laws against fireworks in public property, how all the complaints are usually when it's happening in public property. When there's public property damage, that's already illegal. It's issues like that. Basically, all those main things are already illegal. We're putting this to ban it on the people who want to use it properly and safely, more or less. And the report mentions a lot of injuries and percentages of injuries, but it cites the CHIRPP report, and it lists large percentages like 73% required medical treatment and stuff like that. But that only covers 9 years of the entirety of Canada, and only 122 injuries in the entirety of Canada, a population of 38 million people. So that's an average of 14 injuries per year in Canada. Less than 14, it's 13.55555. So that's like a 1 in 2.8 million people will be injured due to fireworks per year. So it's not very dangerous. It's much safer than crossing the road and everything like that. Firework prohibition does not work. Prohibition of nothing works. It didn't work with alcohol. It didn't work with marijuana. It won't work with fireworks. It's going to continue illegally. We need to educate people, and we need to make it very clear that it's prohibited on public property, but that it's okay in private property, that you need to learn some proper ways to fire it off. Then we should have maybe some simple YouTube videos or official videos for people to watch. It's education, not prohibition. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan Palacio. The next speaker I have is, I believe, Carrie Eilers. Carrie Eilers, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Hi there. So I'm actually here to as well speak in support of the ban. I live in the Parkgate area, like Terry and Peter. I guess I live in the same area that they do, Indian River, close to Deep Cove. I did hear them speak about the fact that the problem isn't the actual date and time, it's the illegal use. But the fact simply is that when things are allowed, things get stretched. Give an inch, they'll take a mile. And that's exactly what's happening here. We have lived in the Indian River area for 25 years. Every year, fireworks start October 29th. They go October 30th, 31st is a crescendo, November 1st, November 2nd. Late night, midday, it really doesn't matter. They are for 5 days continuous. And even though some people say, oh, we just want it for a day, for half an hour, they're purchasing a bunch. They go to the places, other people are buying them as well. It makes it all okay, which I don't think is the right thing for us to do. So whether people are responsible or not, the point is for me that when we take a look at our environment, when we take a look at nature, when we take a look at our domestic animals, yeah, great. So it makes a couple of families happy. The impact is way bigger than that. And that's the impact I'm actually concerned about. When I came to North Vancouver to live here from Richmond and North Delta, we're talking flat here, right? Came to North Vancouver, absolutely beautiful. One of the reasons people come here is that nature defines North Van. Fireworks don't define North Van. Nature defines North Van. This is part of who most of here are. I grant some people don't really care as much about it, but most of us here really do. And if I had to choose between one day of fun, half an hour of fun, over doing the right thing for my environment, my wild animals, my domesticated animals, I think I'll choose doing the right thing by them. Another thing I want to note, because I heard Cindy talk about her children with autism, and I get the fact that she wants to share. I have a friend in the neighborhood, and I really hesitate to bring this up, but I am, has some mental health issues. The fireworks are horrible. And they actually can't count on it just being one day. They have to count on it being 5 days. It's horrible for them. It might be good for some, but the people that it's really horrible for often don't speak out because it's either a PTSD or a mental health issue, and they don't want to talk about that. It's too hard, and they don't want people to know. So Terry Logan, he spoke about some of the work he did in Alberta. Banff, Alberta no longer does fireworks. They actually do light shows now because of the impacts on animals. So it can be done even in Alberta. And if some parts of Alberta can do it, we can do it too. I think Ying and Sue said, it's time to move on. Okay, let's do it. Let's move. Let's move on. Let's find something else that isn't as damaging to the earth, that isn't as damaging to the animals. And I had heard another person comment that, you know, we're just a municipality. We can't stop everything. There is a term that's been used for years. Think global, act local. Think federal, act municipal. And I'd like our municipality to act. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie Eilers. The next speaker I have is Hazen Colbert, participating virtually. Hazen Colbert, can you hear me? Hazen, you're still marked as muted. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I've unmuted. I've unmuted, Mayor. I don't know if you can see me, but I have unmuted. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Great. This is an issue that I was not actually sure about until the beginning of this meeting, and so at the beginning of the meeting, and then as people spoke, the person I actually deferred to was Chief Brian Hutchinson, who I consider an authority. He actually made a number of what I would say are very authoritative, well-researched, analytically challenged issues. I can watch your body language, Chief Hutchinson. Yeah, I can watch your body language as you speak, as I'm speaking. You did very well. And so I'm going to actually defer to you. I think you're right. I think that Brian Hutchinson, the Chief Brian Hutchinson, is right. And I say that because I've watched all the speakers. I truly understand that people would like to see fireworks on certain occasions. I'm 60 years old. In my life, we saw fireworks on July the 1st, which I call Dominion Day, and on New Year's Eve. All of my life up until literally the last few years. And then suddenly somebody said to me, Halloween is a holiday. We need to have fireworks on Halloween. I said, Halloween is not a holiday, it's just a commercial event. So what I'm saying here is I would wish that we would not have to stop fireworks. I genuinely want to not have to do this, but I realize it's gotten out of hand. It's gotten out of hand, Mayor Little and Council. And I think the person that knows that it's gotten out of hand and that we need to defer to is our Chief of Fire and Rescue Services, Ryan Hutchinson. That's who the person I am going to defer to tonight. And now I can see he's now looking down and wondering who I am. Doesn't matter who I am. Doesn't matter who I am, Chief Hutchinson. You're right, okay? You're right. And so Mayor Little and council and staff, let's defer to the expert, okay? Let's defer to the expert. And I thank Megan for bringing this up. Mayor Little, I'm finished speaking.
Thank you for your comments, Hazen Colbert. Okay, I have no other speakers that have identified here. Can we just check through the phone system? Have we had anyone indicate that they wanted to speak? I see two more hands. And Nadine is a first-time speaker, and so let's move Nadine over as a panelist. Okay. Okay, the virtual participant named Nadine, are you able to hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm a lifelong resident of Lynn Valley. This year will be my 26th Halloween in North Vancouver. I'll admit that I've had fond memories of fireworks. I've had great times attending firework displays in neighbors' yards. But when I learned of those negative impacts of fireworks that we've heard tonight, I changed my mind. I've realized that a few minutes of fun is really not worth it. It's time to follow in the footsteps of the majority of municipalities. We can find other ways to come together and have fun without the use of fireworks. We speak about community tonight. Community includes the environment around us and the animals who live inside and outside of our homes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. And we don't have a caller in? We don't have any. Okay, so we've gone through the speakers list a first time. We have a number of questions that have come into the members of council or have been circulated by council. So I'm just going to check in. Chief Hutchinson, do you need a couple of minutes to gather responses, or are you prepared to go and start responding to council questions?
Your Worship, Mayor Little, I am prepared to answer questions that I can. Some may require additional research, but we'll do the best that we can.
I'm going to pause you for just a moment, Chief, if I may. Councillor Hanson, your hand is up. Did you have a question for staff that you wanted to reiterate to the Chief for his responses? Okay, maybe, do you have email access to the meeting, or you just want to share your question on the front end? Oh, if it's just a brief question, sure. Chief, we're just going to have one more question come in from a member of council. Not all members of council have their full computers set up here tonight. So did you have a quick question, Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Just in terms of educating the public as to the fireworks that will continue on the new bylaw, there is the reference to a display event permit, which would be put on by a fireworks supervisor. Perhaps you could provide us just a little bit of background as to what will be allowed under the new regulations that are proposed and what the requirements would be. Thank you very much.
Certainly, through your worship, Councillor Hanson, under the proposed permitting system, that would be more of a sponsored type of event where you would actually have somebody that was certified through Natural Resources Canada as the supervising technician. So they would go through much of the similar process in terms of identifying the type of product they were going to be using, where it was going to be located, and a number of people involved, and safety measures, their certification. So it would preclude mostly our residential neighborhoods, and would be more focused on them securing a location that was still on private property.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. If you could go to the questions that have been submitted to you.
Through your worship, one of the questions that we have was regarding whether firefighters would have the current credentials to utilize fireworks. They would with the current consumer grade fireworks, but would still need the certification through Natural Resources Canada to utilize anything greater than the consumer grade fireworks that we have. There's just a few questions here.
Mayor Little, could we just expand on that answer to that question? Is that appropriate?
What did you have in mind? Go ahead, Councilor Mary.
What is the certification like? How is that a difficult thing to acquire, or if like your answer was that firefighters could like consumer grade fireworks? So is that not what's being lit in the district or throughout the Lower Mainland right now? Consumer grade,
through your worship,
like what you buy at the retail places or on the First Nations land, is that not consumer grade fireworks?
Yes, it is, Councillor. That's consumer grade.
Okay, and what would be beyond that, like stuff from the movie industry, or like?
Yeah, it's typically the larger, more display-oriented fireworks, movie industry, more pyrotechnics in terms of the capacity and the display volume that they can produce. It does require, and I think either Chief Armstrong or our Chief Bylaw Officer could probably talk a little bit more about the training, but I know that it's a 3-day course to get that certification. You also need to spend time as an apprentice under somebody who already currently has a license. So there is a multi-step process to it. And it does allow that individual to actually ignite displays of the same size that we would see at the Symphony of Fire Celebration of Lights.
Right. We don't have that going off in the.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Mary. Chief Hutchinson, your next question.
Okay, your worship, one of the questions was around the have we divided out the complaints between legal discharge versus illegal discharge? Typically, when we get calls regarding illegal discharge, we refer them directly to the RCMP and to call 911. And we have, as of yet, not delved into the data enough to really determine a large number of the complaints we get are more general in nature around noise, pollution, cats, dogs, impacts on wildlife, impacts on people with challenges or disabilities. And those complaints that we receive tend not to get into the specifics of date or time for those ones. We could go back into the data that we have, but it would take a little bit of follow-up, and there would be a large portion of it that would not be specific versus legal or illegal. We also have a question regarding the response from our Indigenous partners on the North Shore. They are aware that Council is looking at this issue. They have not indicated at this time that they would be changing any of their practices, but they are aware that it's something that Council is looking at. There was a question regarding the City of North Vancouver and the number of issues that they have. we don't have the city's specific issue tickets that the RCMP would have given out. One of the things we do get back from the city of North Vancouver on a regular basis in terms of feedback post-Halloween is that it does cause, there's glitches in the system in which city residents, however they do it, they're able to get a district permit. And obviously RCMP are showing up at locations in the city. They have a permit that's got my name on it, and the RCMP have a hard time differentiating sometimes whether that allows people to discharge in the city. We've tried to work on that and deal with that moving forward, but we don't have the specifics on the number of tickets the city has issued in terms of bylaws. If we do ban, if council directs us to implement this and moves forward on this direction, we would then be undertaking a robust communication strategy to inform and educate our residents. Our hopeful approach would not be fines and tickets. It would be on the education side of things at this point in time. Currently, if a person is ticketed, it's through the RCMP. So that's the typical approach, is if it's a 911 call, the RCMP attend, and we do have staff that do attend on Halloween. Our public safety staff are out in large numbers, as are the park rangers alongside the RCMP. And usually we try and avoid fines. We try and educate and redirect behavior that's taking place, as opposed to levying a lot of fines on individuals. Question regarding who is responsible for enforcement, how many staff are on patrol. Typically the week before and the week after, we do not increase our staffing numbers. We do upstaff on Halloween, as do the RCMP. We typically have upwards of 8 to 10 of our public safety staff out in the evening. RCMP anecdotally have indicated that they upstaff their night shift, and the park rangers are typically out. I would say we usually have between 4 and 6 additional park rangers out in the evening. Okay. As we talked about, the city of North Vancouver currently has a ban, as do many municipalities in Metro Vancouver. The District of West Vancouver has indicated that they're exploring this issue, but they have not brought anything forward to council at this point in time. So the District of West Vancouver has not passed a ban at this point in time. And Your Worship, if council can give me just a second to just refresh through here and make sure that I have tried to get to most of these questions. Hopefully I have. If there is anything, just hold on. There is a question here regarding insurance. And if Councillor Forbes can give us a second, I'm just actually waiting for Chief Armstrong and our Chief Bylaw Officer Walker to give me an update on the parameters of the insurance. I know that liability insurance not less than $5 million that names the district as an insured, and deductibility of not more than $5,000 is a part of the insurance that is currently in place. And if I get any further information, or if you'd like any further details than that, I can certainly see what else we can dig up.
Just want to circle back, Chief. You had a long list of questions that you were responding to. Just want to double check that we caught them all. One of the questions was, the size of neighborhood displays have become larger and more complex. Why would we not limit the size? So is there a capability to put a maximum number of fireworks on a permit, I think is the question.
We could try a variety of approaches that based on the will or direction of council. I think what we've found with the neighborhood displays is that often they're occurring when they get bigger, they tend to move outside of the area of private residence. And then we start to verge on how close they're getting to structures. But if council wanted to see us go a different direction, we could certainly entertain that. The enforcement piece would probably be no different than we currently have in terms of just limiting the size. One question I do have here, Your Worship, will this ban eliminate fireworks in the District of North Vancouver? I don't think anything will eliminate fireworks. The municipalities that have fireworks bans in place see a significant decrease. But as was mentioned earlier, individuals that still want to get their hands on fireworks regardless will get their hands on fireworks. So nothing we do will ban anything. And at this point in time, the provincial government has deferred the authority regarding fireworks to municipalities. So the federal or provincial governments are not entering into this discussion at this point in time. I think.
Thank you, Chief. I think that addresses the questions that I have seen come up. And so what we're going to do now is, again, we haven't exhausted the speakers list. We haven't exhausted the council questions that can still come in from this point. But I do want to go back out and check again. We have the phone number posted, and we have, again, a reminder that if you have called in and would like to join the meeting, it's *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 once you are prepared to speak, to unmute yourself. Just checking in, clerk. I don't see any speakers on the public list for a first time. I have a second time speaker on the public list, and so I'm going to start second time speakers now. Okay, Peter Thievin, you have indicated that you want to speak a second time, and so welcome. You have 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I want to bring your attention to a couple of points here. The first one is this. You know, I've listened intently to all of the logical arguments being made for and against such a ban, and you know, the complaints about noise and the complaints about environment. You know, when we're talking about releasing things into the air and noise and animals, I would suggest to you this, that if there are still incidences where a commercial organization who chooses to put somebody through the training and then chooses to get indemnity for the district, if they're still permitted, if you truly are to believe these arguments that all of this discharge is bad for the environment and all of the noise is harmful to wild and domestic animals and other people who are traumatized by it, then why would you permit it at all? It doesn't seem to me to be consistent. It seems to me that all you're trying to do is punish law-abiding residents. And I would also point out that here I sit at the base of Mount Seymour, and when the Festival of Lights, if that's what it's still called, down in English Bay, I can hear that at my house. Now, you know, maybe if somebody lets a firework off right in front of my house, it might be a little louder, but I can still hear the Festival of Light at my house. So, you know, we're not about to eliminate that. The other thing I want to point out, you know, while in the past we may have tried to focus on education and compliance, I want to point out on page 8 of the package, it doesn't say anything about education, doesn't say anything about judgment being used. Here's what it reads, and I'm going to read this so that everybody has a chance to let it sink in. Penalty. Every person who violates any of the provisions of this bylaw, or who suffers or permits any act or anything to be done in contravention or violation of any provisions of this bylaw, is deemed to be guilty of an offense against this bylaw and of a separate offense each day the violation is caused and allowed to continue, is liable upon conviction for a fine up to $50,000. Now, when you get into what does suffers an act, like someone could make the argument that if you were watching a fireworks display and you don't go in with a hose and try to put it out and stop it, you have suffered a violation of the act. And you could be liable for $50,000. Now, I'm sure you're in your mind, you're thinking, Peter, be reasonable. Nobody's going to do that. But that's what it says. Just like that silly bylaw on the garbage cans where we all pointed out to you that the way it reads is that you'll get fined if you put your garbage can out after 9:30. You won't simply miss it. And you've spent innumerable times. Why not fix the bylaw? Why did we pass it? Why are we going to pass this draconian measure that says that, if somebody's standing on the side of the street watching a fireworks display and it happens to be deemed illegal, boy, they could be fined up to $50,000, depending on the will of the bylaw officer fining them. I think that's pretty draconian, and I think it would have a hard time making it stand up in court. I just want to close with this, that there are arguments on both sides of this question. I think that consideration towards both sides is tantamount. I think that, this is why the question is before you, for your judgment, to try to discern what is the right thing to do. And myself, I don't know for sure what the right thing to do is. But I do know this, I can prepare for a 4-hour period once a year. So if we had a situation where we could just enforce the bylaw that we have. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry. Someone's trying to call me on my cell, the same device. If we could just enforce the bylaw that we do have, I think life would be substantially better for everyone. And you wouldn't need to take such draconian measures against people who, in that 4 hours once a year, they are abiding with the current law. And given that nothing else will change, that's really only who this is going to go after, is the law abiders. And I just think it might be a little far. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Thievin. Okay, and so looking for any other first or second time speakers that would like to address the matter. I don't see any hands in the attendees. Again, I'll remind people that if you have called in, although I don't see any callers on currently, it would be *9. Okay, and I don't see any additional council questions that have been brought in. Oh, I do see an attendee, second time speaker, Emily Pickett. If we can just move her over as a panelist. Emily Pickett, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Welcome. You have an additional 5 minutes to speak.
Great, I will only take a moment. I just wanted to just sort of add to the discussion that I'm hearing, and just note that, we've heard suggestions that pet owners can plan for, a certain time frame that fireworks may be allowed, but I just want to reiterate the important point that I think that's not always the case, and certainly it's not the case for wildlife. Wildlife cannot prepare for a certain time frame or escape, these really disruptive fireworks events. And I also just think that the leadership that the District of North Vancouver has taken on the issues of the climate emergency, the biodiversity crisis and ecological crises, this widespread use of fireworks just doesn't really jive. It doesn't align with what we need to do to address these different crises. So I just wanted to make that kind of additional point as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily Pickett. I see one additional speaker. If we can move Corey Cost over as a panelist, then comments. Corey Cost, can you hear me? You are muted.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council.
Good evening.
So you can hear me?
Yes, I can. You have 5 minutes to address the council.
My name is Corey Cost. I live at 2851 Colward Drive near Edgemont Village. Just to get some clarity on some questions that have popped up since this meeting began, if Your Worship could just clarify, does this bylaw apply this Halloween? Or is it for next year's Halloween or next period of time? This bylaw, I'm a little vague about whether it applies right now.
Well, I can say, just to clarify that this matter would not be in force and effect for this year. It would actually have to come back to a meeting of council to be determined if there was support for second and third reading and then subsequently adoption. And so it is not structured to be in place for 2021. We're resuming your time, Corey Cost.
Yes, so that clears that situation because I've heard both times. And Your Worship, when you say we'll give you 5 minutes first time and 5 minutes the second time, and any additional time is up to the chair, does the additional time apply to the second 5 minutes or after your 2 5 minutes have been up? It's a little unclear to me what the restrictions are on speaking. So
the practice has been that it's 5 minutes, then you let other people speak, and then 5 minutes, let anybody first or second time speak, and then so long as the person has not been repeating the subject matter
yes.
and they're offering new information, then at my discretion, we add additional time.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's clear now. Okay. I do find technically it's a problem having possession be ticketed offense. I would think you should focus on the use of the material or the illegality of the use of the material rather than pure possession. So the word possession is something I urge council to consider very carefully what you intend there. And there was a statement about the sales being restricted to District of North Vancouver permit holders. This brings up the concept of parallels. Alcohol purchases. Are purchases of alcohol in the district restricted to people who live in the district? It's a pretty regulated kind of item. But I don't see, even though any of the regulated items having such a restriction that the sale is restricted to only District of North Vancouver permitters. So I urge council to consider about the appropriateness of that. On the bylaw itself, as you have laid out, I agree. I think the time has come to really reconsider this. I guess we're growing up as a district and as a municipality, and we should think about the greater good about having such a bylaw. I hate to be a Grinch on this kind of very enjoyable event for many people in the past and probably could be in the future. But the aspects of safety and pollution have certainly become into the fore in the current generation that we are educating, and I think it behooves council to set a good example. So thank you for allowing me to speak on this. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Corey Cost. Okay, so again, I'm going to ask, would anybody else like to speak a first or second time? I see Yingyan Zhu has indicated they wish to speak a second time. Get them joined to the meeting here. Yingyan Zhu, can you hear me? You're currently muted.
Yeah, now I'm muted. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. I can hear you now. You have 5 additional minutes to address the meeting.
Thank you. Yeah, I listened to everyone's argument, and I found that many of the focus is on the time frame, 4 hours per year. And just as Emily pointed out that wildlife don't have the luxury to prepare for this 4 hours of pollution and the noise. And I also want to point out that for people with mental health issues, many of them have emotional support and animals with them. So for this kind, and loud voice and the flashing light are a major trigger of the issue, and it's also an issue, negative impact on their pet. So in that situation, that will be a double jeopardy. And they don't have the luxury or privilege to prepare for the 4 time frame every year. So if they live in this kind of community, how could they feel it's an inclusive and welcoming community? And many of them, they don't speak out. They are silent. Does that mean we can just ignore their concerns and their sufferings? And so, yeah, that's what I would like to add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yingyan Zhu. Okay, and so again, I'll ask, would anybody else like to address the meeting a first or second time? Yes. Yeah, Dan Curry would like to speak in here in the council chambers. Welcome. You have an additional 5 minutes to address the hearing.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been sitting here listening to many speakers following my first comments earlier in the evening. I'm hearing a lot of comments about it's time for us to grow up, other municipalities have done it, that kind of stuff. And again, I'd really just like to reiterate that I would urge council and mayor to take a common sense, fact-based approach to this. I don't think public policy should be formed just based on what other municipalities are doing, or whether it's, you know, the current sentiment that we're hearing around different issues. I think you have to understand what is the situation now and what are you going to accomplish through the amendment or dissolution of the current bylaw. I also heard you know, some stuff about allowing the widespread use of fireworks. Again, the legal time to use fireworks is October 31st during a 4-hour period. Anybody that's doing it outside of that time frame is already breaking the law. And if they're breaking the law now, they're not going to start suddenly following bylaws in the future when there's various outlets where you can obtain fireworks, which will not change if this ban goes forward. And just specifically on the last speaker, she mentioned guide dogs or personal support dogs. Those dogs are specifically trained not to react to live sounds. That's a specific training as part of their certifications. And that's it. Thank you.
Very much. Dan Curry, thank you. Okay. I see another attendee. This would be Carrie Eilers wishing to speak a second time. Can we move her over as panelist, please? Carrie Eilers, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry, it took a minute for me to be able to rejoin. So thank you, council members, for allowing me to speak again. I think that Dan is correct for a lot of support animals that are actually trained as support animals. There are people that are elderly and that do have mental health issues that have support animals that are basically there as not as fully trained support animals, but they get them to help them personally. They're not actually going through an organization, and those haven't all been trained in that way. Definitely guide dogs are, because they are outside with the people, guiding them through the streets, and they have to be aware of loud noises and things. But I wouldn't necessarily say that every single trained dog has been trained for that. I've been involved in a lot of animal training, so that's why I would say be very careful about that statement. Guide dogs, 100%, and people that get animals to soothe them and comfort them, which I know people have, and they're not actually brought in by an organization. Those are not trained. So I hadn't. So that's something that we should be very careful about, making that consideration. And honestly, our world is not heading in a good direction from an environmental perspective. Every little thing that we can do, we should do. And if my fun is curtailed a bit, then my fun is curtailed a bit. I don't drive around as much as I used to. I take a bike. Not necessarily because I want to take a bike, because actually I'm not one of these people that likes to do a lot of activity unless I get, something like a hike with a beauty. Bicycling somewhere to pick something up and put it in my pannier is not considered by me super fun, but I do it for one good reason. It's because my environment will benefit. Not a ton, maybe a micro bit, but every one of us that does something, that starts making it a lot. And doing something because, oh, it's fun, I've always done it, it's always been that way, that's just as unreasonable as a reason than saying we should just do it differently for no reason. We should do it differently because it's the right thing to do. We should do it differently for our animals, for our wildlife, for our environment, for the kids' environment, for the grandkids' environment, and so on. I really think this is an important issue. I think it's time for them to go. I know Dan doesn't like my saying, it's time. But take a look at the world around us. Take a look at the fires we've had. Unfortunately, it's time. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Carrie Eilers. Would anybody else like to address the meeting for a first or second time? Okay, I'm going to ask a second time. Would anybody else like to address the meeting for a first or second time? For a third and final time, I'm going to ask, would anybody else like to address the meeting for a first or second time? Okay, hearing none and seeing no interested speakers on the attendees list, and I don't believe we have any call-ins. I also have not seen additional questions coming in from the council during that time. I'm going to rule that the speakers list is exhausted. Clerk, do you agree with that assessment? Okay, thank you very much. And I believe there is a recommended motion in the package. Councillor Hanson, I don't know if a member of council can make Councillor Hanson, yes? Okay, and so the motion that is in the package is that, here, I'll read it out just to be clear.
Just look up on the board.
Oh, I've got too many screens and that's not one of them. Okay, so this is the recommended motion from Councillor Hanson, that the October 12th public meeting is closed and that Fireworks Regulation Bylaw 7456 2004 Amendment Bylaw 8516 2021 Amendment 4 is returned to Council for further consideration. Is there a seconder on that motion? Second by Councillor Kernan. I'm going to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carries. Okay, and so just check in with the clerk then. When are you anticipating this is likely to return to a regular meeting of council?
I believe this is scheduled to come in November, following Halloween, to come for second and third reading.
Okay, and so it'll be returned to a regular meeting of council likely in November. We'll give notice through our normal channels to identify when that's going to come on our public agenda. I want to, at this point, thank everybody for participating in the meeting today. I really appreciate the patience people showed when dealing with some of the hybrid issues we have to deal with. I hope to get our council procedures matters sorted out shortly so that we don't have to crack the whip on councillors for in-person participation. But again, on behalf of the council, thank you very much to the members of the public for participating today, both virtually and in person. We do appreciate you taking an interest in your community. This is the last item on the agenda tonight. So council, if somebody will move adjournment, I will accept. Moved by Councillor Forbes, I accept. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.